everybody, this is Eve West. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. This channel is dedicated to promoting a book I wrote. It's called Follow. It's an ebook. You can find it on Amazon.com under the Kindles tab. And my book deals with spirituality. I'm looking at it not just from a purely metaphysical or psychological standpoint, which is what we typically think of when it comes to spirituality. Those non-conceptual aspects of who we are, like love and creativity, intuition, and so forth, but also focus on the earthly aspect of us, which is the reptilian brain. That's what you can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. And so, just to address one of my viewers, if you will, there was someone that mentioned something about, human beings not having a reptilian brain. I think that in the medical profession, it might be, conceptualized or labeled as something else, but, there's three major aspects to our brain. And I focus on all of them really, but I like to highlight the reptilian brain because we're shunned from embracing the physical aspect of who we are. But we have the physical, which is related to the so-called reptilian brain. Okay, I'm not sure the formal term for it, but also we have the limbic system, which is like, connected to your emotions. And then you have your neocortex, and your neocortex is your is really like your more psychological. It's your psychological aspect. The neocortex is really what separates human beings from animals, and so it's the neocortex really that has actually gone haywire, I guess you could say, so to speak. That's why in the Matrix, the movie The Matrix, that's how they got Neo's name. Neo actually refers to the neocortex. And so, we've really become super duper severely psychological, if you will, since we've been in physicality. And so, just wanted to address that, if you will, because someone made a comment earlier about, we don't have a reptilian brain, so to speak. Which is, fine. Like I said, I think it's called something else, in terms of medical terms. But anywho, I focus on that, and I focus on very controversial topics as it pertains to the reptilian brain, or the physical aspect of us we can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear, such as, I focus on sex, I focus on money, I focus on, sex, money, and race. Race is a big one that I focus on. And typically we are taught to, we're shunned from talking about these things in spiritual circles, but they're very integral to who we are. Just like those spiritual, psychological aspects of ourselves. But we're only taught to embrace the psychological and to neglect the physical. And so when you think about ascension, especially when it comes to the so-called New Age and it talks about ascension, you can only ascend if you're balanced. And so if you're super duper spiritual, but you are, you're not really honoring your earthly aspect of you. If you have a plane, you have a really big right wing, but a really small left wing, that plane's not going to get into the air. It's not going to ascend, let alone stay in the air. And so, if you're not embracing your masculine here, then you will be earthbound. You will stay earthbound. You will not be able to leave here, to leave the matrix system. And so you become what we call a master race eventually. A race of just super duper blonde hair and super duper blue eyes. And so you'll have no more divinity because your melanin will get extracted out. And your melanin is connected to your third eye, which is your pineal gland. So, I really want to, point that out, if you will. That's something that, I really focus on in my book. I focus on the various constructs that actually divide the mind within the matrix between the conscious ego and the unconscious astral body. In Egyptian mythology, it's called Isis and Ra. In Christian theology, it's called Adam and Eve. And Freudian psychology is called the ego and the id, if you will. And so these are just, two aspects, if you will, of yourself that the matrix is designed to create. And so when you go to sleep at night, you are your astral or your God self, or your higher self, as they call it, and the New Age. But I really don't like to refer to the higher self as the higher self because it makes it sound pious. Because my higher self is very evil. My higher self is very evil and menacing. And so your higher self is really a person that you go to sleep to that is not under a restriction. So when you're in physicality, you have laws and rules and things like that to follow. If you break those laws, then you suffer consequences. But on the astral, you're not a woman, you're not a man, you're not rich, you're not poor, you're not black, you're not white, you're nothing. And so you get to just pretty much work out your restrictions and so-called be yourself, in a way. In a way, you can kind of just do what you want. And so in Christian theology, it's referred to as heaven. This is referred to as heaven. But the New Age refers to it as the astral realm. So, I really wanted to talk about... I also want to, just to let you know that in my book, I talk about the elite. And the elite actually run this hellhole, if you will, for us Jews. If you will, it's kind of like a concentration camp, right? If you think about it. And so the elite have plateaued out of experiencing the material. And so they've resorted to sacrificing us. And the elite, when I say they plateaued out of the material, what I mean is that they have an idle mind. Whenever you have so much money and so-called power, you don't really have anything to do. You're a master. And so people work for you. And since people work for you, you pretty much, just tell people what to do. And so you have nothing to do yourself. You have no needs, per se. You can manifest whatever you want because they have ownership of the sacral aspect of themselves, the solar plexus, which is, responsible for manifesting. And so, they have idle minds. And they, things that, gratify normal people, such as, like a nice car, a nice house, vacations, things like that at the material level carry a very low vibration. And so when you hear about in the media, like, these certain, really ritzy, super duper rich families like the Rothschilds and people like that, you hear about them sacrificing people and having all these orgies and things like that, like in Eyes Wide Shut, the movie Eyes Wide Shut. Really, they're just victims of a degenerate mind. They are victims of a degenerate mind because once you have all this money and this power, you don't really have anywhere to go. You've plateaued out. And so, like, for example, like a regular person, just to kind of see if you can empathize with the elite, right? Say, for example, someone gave you $1 billion today. You have $1 billion. What would you do with that money? What would you do with the $1 billion? You would ground your desires, right? You would say, oh, I'm going to get that house and that car that I want, and I'm going to get the man or woman of my dreams, and I'm going to travel the world and buy some diamonds or whatever the case is. But, after that, what would you do? You would actually start to degenerate, really. You would degenerate. You would start to gain a degenerate mind because there's nothing to strive for. And so, that's why the elite have resorted to sacrificing people just to get an emotional charge, to actually suck the life out of people who do not have, I guess you would say, ownership of their sacral to manifest. And so they suck the life out of you, like vampires. It's very similar to a vampire, where they need blood. It's kind of like they have no life. And so it's like, well, since I don't have a life, then I have to mess up your life and to, somehow make you feel bad because our suffering feels good to them. And I know this doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but think about the movie 50 Shades of Grey, okay? Because my handler on the astral realm, King James of Scotland, he really is a character that really, or I should say Christian Grey in the movie 50 Shades of Grey really represents my handler. Because Christian Grey beats people to feel better. They're at the end of the first movie, 50 Shades of Grey, Anastasia tells Christian to beat her and to, really show her how severe her so-called torture can be. And when he's beating her, he actually feels better. You can see that he gets an emotional charge or relief, if you will, from beating her. And so the elite are like that. They have so much money that it's like, you know what, I need to make something suffer so I can feel better. And so the elite, they're very judgmental, but they don't need a gavel. They need a mirror. If evil shall see itself, it shall die. And so, not, advocating anyone dying per se. I mean, they're already dead, but, when you're judging people, you really need to look at yourself. And they do not want to do that. They would prefer to look at others than to look at themselves. And so, at the end of our incarnation, they always judge us. But they're no better than human beings. In fact, they're way worse. The elite do way worse, if you will, than, what we do, if you will, on this end. So just want to talk a little bit about the elite and kind of give you an idea and an understanding of, what their mentality is, if you will. Like I said, my ex-husband, he told me an idle mind is the devil's workshop, and so they definitely have idle minds. And I talk about in my book, Follow, basically my personal life. I talk about how my personal life, represents the holistic view of spirituality, and or maybe not represents, but how it correlates to a holistic view of spirituality, and how that also connects to the macrocosm of the world at large. And so, check Follow out. I really do give you a lot of esoteric knowledge that you're not going to find on anybody else's channel or any other book, because the knowledge that I actually share was locked away in my DNA, locked away in my melanin. So when you start to ascend, your melanin gets unlocked, and so your third eye opens. And when your third eye opens, you start to overstand instead of just understand information. But I would not have been able to understand information if I did not have the knowledge that was disseminated to me by what I would call angels, if you will, in the New Age. Angels of the New Age. It's funny because I came across certain, what I would call gurus, so to speak, like the real Merkaba. He has a channel, and he has another website, if you will, so check him out. And Sadhguru is also another angel that actually, taught me, all those things I needed to know from the superficial level, so I could access information from the etheric level and to actually start ascending in knowledge. And if I did not have those angels on my side, then, I would not have been able to really discover the truth within myself. And so they definitely are good teachers, or, good is not even the word, spectacular, spectacular, profound, to me, there are no words to express, what they've actually done to actually help me to ascend. And so, I really would, I really suggest that you look at those people, because they have a wealth of knowledge that is designed to awaken you to the knowledge that you have, so you can overstand and understand knowledge. And so in this particular video, I want to focus on gang stalking, because like I said before in other videos, my gang stalking videos, whenever you start to ascend, you start to experience what I would call psychological torture. Because, whenever you're acquiring information, people will start to demonize you within your environment, okay? They'll start to demonize you within your environment as a divergent, because the information you have conflicts with programming, and everyone else is programmed within the matrix. Everyone else is programmed. They are programmed to demonize the Christ, okay? So this goes back to reincarnation. Let's break down the word reincarnation. Re means again, Karn means body, in means not, and then nation, means nation, basically. And so reincarnation means, again, the Christ, again, has no body and nation. So there's only one Christ, to be honest with you. There's only one Christ born into physicality. And so it is the job of the Christ to actually gain the sacral, which is the body, that means Karn, and to actually restore the soul attachments of itself, of the Christ, which is embodied in a nation. So, just to kind of give you some esoteric knowledge in terms of, what reincarnation actually means, and breaking down the morphology of the word reincarnation. And I'm not, making this up. Look up these particular prefixes and word roots to help you to understand, essentially from an objective standpoint, what reincarnation means. But you start to vibrate differently, and so this is where you get psychological torture, such as gang stalking. And I also talk about other psychological torture that I have endured, since, ascending. In my book, it's in a chapter, it's called Gedankenkontrolle, which is the German word for mind control. Also I have on my channel, there's a video that I have. It's called Giden Gen Control A, and you can find that video. I'm not sure if it's featured on my channel because YouTube, I think they don't feature all your videos unless you're looking for the video and searching it. I'm not sure if you'll be able to find it, but if you look up Eve West and in parentheses you put in Giden Gen Control A in parentheses Eve West, then you will find that particular video. But what I'm going to do is write down all the titles of my videos and put them in the description of my channel, so even if that video is not featured, you can still type it in, know what to look for, know what to search for, and so you can find all of my videos, if you will. And so I really wanted to focus on gang stalking specifically because, like I said, when you start to vibrate differently, people within your environment will start to attack you. They will start to attack you, and really the attacks are not so much physical, but they're mainly psychological, and they attack you because of the knowledge that you have, because everyone else is programmed to adhere to the programming, but you are different. You know that you can see past the illusions of the matrix, and so you have insight through your pineal gland. And so what does that mean? You start to see things differently, like words. Like, for example, when I looked at the word Christian or Christianity, and I looked at the suffix IAN, being an English teacher for years, I was like, okay, IAN, it means a part of or a variant of. And so, when I look at the word Christian, Christian means a part of Christ or a variant of Christ. It does not mean a Christ. A Christ is holy. A Christ is both spiritual or psychological and also earthly. But our religion, such as Christianity, teaches us to just embrace our spiritual side, just to embrace what's above the navel, as opposed to the root chakra and your sacral, your solar plexus and what's below. And so because of that, and everything at the physical level almost, I wouldn't say everything, but a lot of things are considered sinful, right, as it pertains to the body, a lot of things are considered sinful, then this is unholy. It is a variance of Christ. It is not a Christ. And so, when you point something out like this to someone who is identified with being a Christian, then oftentimes you clash with that person. So they point you out as a divergent. They point you out as an other. And the thing about it is that as an ego, we're so identified with aspects of ourselves that are artificial. And this kind of goes back to the I am, if you will, in the New Age. The I am, actually, although, I don't really, care for the New Age at all. The New Age actually really is designed to kill Jesus. In other words, when I say Jesus, I mean it's designed to kill the solar plexus. That's what I'm referring to when I'm saying Jesus. The masculine aspect of the soul. That is what the New Age is designed to do. But I do agree with the I am. Because the I am is who you are when you go to the astral. So when you go to sleep at night, you're not a man, a woman, rich, poor, black, white, what have you. You are no one. You don't identify with any concept. You don't have a country. You don't have a nation. You don't have a race. You don't have a gender. You're not a man. You're not a woman. You're not a daughter or a husband or whomever. You don't identify with any of these concepts. And so when you're identified with these concepts, you are asleep. You are asleep within the matrix. And so if someone says something about your religion, you get up in arms. But in another lifetime, you would be another religion. Like you might be Jewish or you might be Muslim or something like that, or Buddhist. You're mad when someone says something about your race. But in this lifetime, you might be black. But in your next lifetime, in lifetimes later, you may be white. So the thing is that you're identified with these things. And you've lost sight of who you truly are, which is your divinity. Your divinity actually observes these avatars that you play. And so, when people get upset about these various aspects of their selves, right, their ego, there's a problem because the Christ actually is here to give esoteric knowledge regarding those aspects of who you are as an ego. And the information that I give does not feel good to an ego. It does not. If you don't have an open pineal gland, a third eye, guess what? You're not going to like me, which is fine. I really don't mind that. Because really, to be honest with you, 10 years ago, I wouldn't like me. And there were many times when I was writing my book that I didn't like me. You know what I mean? I was like, oh, wow, this information is destroying me. It is destroying my ego. But you know, it did that because we're conditioned to believe in the ego. We're conditioned to believe in all these lies about ourselves, when these you know, concepts, if you will, have nothing to do with who we truly are. We are the I am. So when you say I am a woman, you know, when you go to sleep at night, are you a woman? If you say I am a man, when you go to sleep at night, are you a man? When you say I am Christian, when you go to sleep at night, are you Christian? You know, when you say I am Jewish, when you go to sleep at night, are you Jewish? You know, you say I am a mother. When you go to sleep at night, are you a mother? You are none of these things. You are none of these things. And so you work out your restrictions and on the astral realm, or what we would call heaven. And when you die, you go to the astral realm as well, or when you give up your mind and your body. And so you just pretty much work out all the restrictions that you had in physicality. So, you know, I really want to, you know, just point out how divergents are really singled out, if you will, as you're ascending and you become, you start to become crucified. They start to crucify you. And so, in gang stalking is one of those tactics that, psychological mainly, those tactics that they use to crucify the Christ, or crucify Jews, as you would say. And when I talk about a Jew, I don't mean like, you know, what we think of, you know, in terms of the reptilian brain as a Jew, like religion and so forth. I'm talking about someone who has the earthly and the sacral aspect, the feminine and the masculine aspect of themselves. So they have the pituitary and they have the pineal capacity to unite the two as a Christ being. And so this kind of correlates to Egypt. When you see, what is it called, as a wajet, when you see the snake coming out of the, the snake coming out of the pineal gland. And so that shows that the kundalini has risen to the pineal, and so that person is Christ, meaning that they are a Jew, that they can actually manifest at will. And so our ability to manifest is taken away from us really when we descend into physicality. You know, for me, my ability to manifest was taken away from me when I was a little girl. I was sexually abused. And shown pornography to actually rot out my kundalini, as they call it, or the earthly sacral. And so the thing is that, you know, whenever you are sexually abused and you are, you know, say for example, like when I was a little girl and, you know, I was, you know, sexually stimulated to have orgasms at a very young age, it actually short-circuited my, my brain. Because the thing is that, you know, you're flooding a whole lot of dopamine, if you will, into the brain. Any artificial means of physical gratification within the matrix will actually short circuit your nervous system. So that sex, it can be done with food. It can also be done with drugs. And so these are artificial means. And so, you know, to kind of paint a picture of this, like drugs. For example, you know, drugs actually floods the brain with a whole lot of dope, a whole lot of dopamine. It gives you that euphoric feeling. So it's an artificial way of ripping open the upper chakras, or whatever the case is. All right, so you have euphoria. But, you know, after your high comes down, then, you know, you have to keep going back to that drug to experience, you know, that euphoric feeling. Now, you know, after you've taken that drug for a little bit, you reach a plateau. And so you graduate to another drug. And so you have to start taking that drug to, you know, really, to attain a charge, if you will, to get a high from it. And so this is what happens, you know, same thing with other, you know, vices of the demiurge, as I call it, or the matrix, like sex and food, you know. You go from Chinese food to Mexican food, and then you go from Mexican food to American, but whatever it is, you know, you're always trying to put some diversity in there to reach a different high, to reach some gratification. You know, with sex, you know, you try this position, then you'll try another position, you know, so you're always trying to use these various artificial means in order to make an artificial connection to yourself, to your physical aspect of yourself. And so when I was little and I was sexually abused, this is what, you know, was done to actually make me plateau out of experiencing the material. And so I would be a giver of my sexual nature as opposed to be a receiver. And so it made me you know, it made me very feminine instead of masculine. So it made me very imbalanced. And so that was my ability. That was the first way that, you know, my ability to manifest was taken away from me through rotting out my kundalini, my earthly sacral. And so, and really, talking about that, I want to focus on, gang stalking, and how, gang stalking is something that is used to attack you when you are ascending, getting back your sacral, getting back that, that sexual nature, if you will. And I talk a little bit about kundalini in another video, and really talk to you about my experience in terms of when my kundalini first started to revisit, because it's a very sexual nature, and so I really did have like what I would consider to be a quote-unquote dirty mind. I really did have a quote-unquote dirty mind, because whenever you're imbalancing the solar plexus where the genitals are housed, and that's imbalance, is going to come out in very nasty, filthy, disgusting ways. And so that's really corresponds to the whore of Babylon. It really has a whole lot of correlation to that. And so when I started ascending, and I got past the whole super sexual type of stage, if you will, then that sexual energy started to be transmuted into knowledge. And so as it became transmuted into knowledge, I started to reach a state of what we would call androgyny. And so you're like, okay, what is that? Androgyny is when you actually embrace your feminine and your masculine. So you're not seeking outside of yourself. During puberty, you start to seek a man or a woman, right? Sexual, I guess you would say, gratification. So you want to copulate to feel whole. Really, that's what it's about. But little children are androgynous. They don't seek a partner, someone to have sex with, because they're not far removed from their spiritual selves. And so because of that, they are born holy, really. Although they identify with a particular sex, they have a penis or a vagina, they are born holy. And since they're born holy, they really don't have a want to copulate. They're not judgmental. And so going back to judgment being the lowest taxonomy of knowledge in the matrix, you can tell that judgment is the lowest taxonomy of knowledge, because children are not judgmental. They don't care if you have one arm. They don't care if you're black or white or whatever. Kids really just don't care about you. They don't care about the physical aspect. They just want to play. They just want to play and be happy, and that type of thing. And they don't like to be under restriction. And so the reason being is because you're not restricted in the astral. Reason being is because you don't have to identify with a certain concept on the astral realm. You are holy there. You're holy in a way. So, when you start to vibrate higher, then you become demonized. And so, within my particular dwelling especially, my gang stalking has been kicked up 33 notches. My gang stalking has been kicked up a whole lot. And so I see a breakthrough in terms of my consciousness sooner or later. Hopefully sooner, because I've been going through a whole lot of psychological torture. And so, the thing is that one thing about psychological torture, it definitely requires a lot of contradictions. If you look at certain spiritual doctrines, like in the Bible, in A Course in Miracles, I've highlighted those. There's a lot of contradictory things within. And so I've been receiving a lot of contradictory, restrictions and things like that within my home. Where I'm told to do things and I'm told not to do it. And so it really, that's designed to disintegrate you and jumble up the mind. When someone is feeding you contradictory things, you really start to question yourself. If someone tells you something one day, then they tell you something another day, you start to question yourself, and you really sometimes may even forget what they said, because you're having two things fed into your consciousness. And this is done on purpose, because the whole point is to paint a picture of you being a liar, to paint a picture of you being a liar, to paint a picture of actually, it's actually they're trying to debase or imbalance, I should say, your pineal gland. And so whenever you're imbalancing the pineal gland, you are imbalancing the emotional body. And so this is designed to tick you off, to piss you off. And so my parents, my mom mainly, do lots of things within the home to piss me off, and to feed contradictions into my consciousness, and to make me second guess myself, and to make me think, not to really know how to really even live within my environment is done on purpose. And so, the government, they actually, use your family and use, people within your community and places that you go in order to harass you and to actually feed you contradictions and to restrict your ability to conduct business within the matrix. And this kind of goes back to symbology of mark of the beast as well. When you don't have the mark of the beast, then you can't really function and conduct business as, like you used to. And so I talk about how I was forced from 3 different jobs, if you will. And even, when I go to certain businesses, my money and my business is not respected anyway. And so, it's been very, very difficult, if you will, for me to even function properly. But they do that because they want to make a case against you. They want to make a case to incarcerate you or institutionalize you in some way because you jeopardize the system with the type of esoteric knowledge that you provide. And so, when you're vibrating higher, if you will, they want to get rid of the truth. And so, for example, my livelihood was attacked. And since I was, pushed away from all of my jobs, and, that's another reason why I decided to get my own business. It's not the only reason, but it was one of the reasons I thought that this was a better step for me. But, and being pushed out of my, these jobs and then, going to live with my parents, although, I still had a job, but, going to live with my parents, I said, maybe this would be a better fit for me. I didn't have to, because I had a job, but hey, I said, whatever, I'll go live with my parents. It would be, maybe a better thing all around for everyone. But when I was pushed to live with my parents and my parents being used to target me as well, they want to paint a picture, of you, to put you facilitate an environment to where you look bad, where you blow up or something like that. Because the programming, the gang stalking programming is very covert. It just looks like you had an argument with a family member. It just looks like you went to a business, you had bad customer service. When you get sold out to the government, it's very much done in covert ways to really look like you are the one who's the problem or the culprit, when in fact you have been relentlessly psychologically tortured on a regular basis. And so on my channel, I really paint a picture of what that looks like. I paint a picture of what that looks like and how, when you're examining certain, I would say, gang stalking situations, that it requires more than your reptilian brain. Superficially, which you can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear, it actually has a lot to do with your pineal gland. If you don't have the ability with your pineal gland to really catch a lot of these insidious things, then you're not going to really understand and have empathy in terms of what a targeted individual goes through. So I really want to use my life to really paint a picture of, what to look for when it comes to being gang stalked and psychologically tortured. And so in this video, it's very important because I would say this video, out of all my gang stalking videos, really signifies the agenda of actually destroying a TI. Destroying a Christ being, a targeted individual. Really, this is kind of like goes back to Nazi Germany and how the Jews were forced into the ghettos, and then eventually there was a final solution to destroy them and to kill them. Because the programming is designed to make you destitute. And so whenever you are, like say for example, if I was kicked out of my mom's home, and I was separated from my, earth family, then no one would know anything about me. No one would know where I am, whatever the case is. And so the government, they can make justifications for incarcerating me. Because the thing is that when you take someone's livelihood away from them, the reptilian brain kicks in. And so your body, your body needs stuff. Like you need food, you need shelter and things like that. And so whenever you are forced into these primitive means, if you will, people tend to resort to their reptilian brain. And so they start to do things like break the law and so forth. And so this gives justification for locking the person up. They're very evil. It's kind of like, I know this person's not going to break the law. So if I take her jobs away and, or make her job situation very, very difficult, right? Then she will seek her own business and we'll make sure that her own business doesn't do well, right? So we're going to push her into doing something that she can't manifest through. and then we'll put her with her parents, and then we'll make sure that we program her parents to actually, you know, push her out of the house, and then she'll be out. And then, you know, she will, you know, because of her reptilian brain, she will resort to, I guess you would say, unlawful means of actually meeting her physical needs. And so then we will have a justification for incarcerating her. And so, you know, they actually facilitate an environment to do the things that that they want to do. You know, like, for example, if I was a part, you know, because I'm a divergent, so I can see things from all perspectives. But, you know, for me, if I wanted just to, you know, to destroy a divergent, why would you just not do it, right? You know, like, I mean, if I wanted to, I don't, because I am a divergent, you know, and I see divergence as beautiful. They are beautiful to me. Christs are beautiful. They're holy. And also, going back to, you know, how Christs are portrayed in the media, like on X-Men, you can see the X-Men, which represents the Christ, Xmas, X-Men. X-Men are superhuman. They are superhuman beings, and the Christ do not really seek to destroy humanity at all. Christ beings are mutants, and they really just want to be like everybody else, but they're not like everybody else, and they're demonized because they are different, because they don't understand us. They don't understand what we are, who we are. And since they don't understand us, then they're like, they're an other, so we have to destroy them. And so this really goes to show, practice what you preach, because in the Matrix environment, they're always about preaching, you know, oh, you know, we should embrace everyone, but we're not embraced. And so that's sick and that's sad. But, you know, as Christ beings, you know, we are targeted, and we are pushed on the fringes of society, and they facilitate this environment to actually force us into ghettos, and, you know, to really have justification for what they want to do. And so when you become institutionalized, you don't really have your civil rights. Like, no one really knows anything about you, so that's when they can conduct, you know, experiments and things like that. And no one knows. You know, you don't have your cell phone. You can't go on social media and say, hey, you know, this is what's happening to me behind bars. Or you can't go on social media and say, oh, this is what's happening to me in an insane asylum, or whatever the case is, you know, in the psychiatric ward. You know, they're feeding me repetitions about me doing this or doing that. You can't do anything about it. You know, you can't do anything about it because you are in the institution now. But instead of them actually just putting you into an institution, they want to force your hand to do the things that they want to do. And to me, that's very sick, and that's very sad. And so that's why I have this channel, to actually expose that, and to expose that agenda. And in this particular video, the footage that I'm going to show you really gives validity to that whole idea of, you know, we're going to make sure that divergents are pushed to the fringes of society so we can institutionalize them. Because in this video, when I talk to my mom, she mentions around 5 minutes or so, 5 minutes and maybe 20 seconds into the video, she mentions that the agenda is to get me out of the house. So she doesn't, you know, because my mom, she voices it. She's like, I don't want you here. But she doesn't say get out. You know, she doesn't say I'm going to call the cops to have you get out, you know, put out of here. She says this is already underway. I promise you. That's what she says, is already undergone or underway, something like that. And so listen carefully. It's around 5 minutes and 20 seconds into the video. I'm going to upload the actual video. So look out for that actual video, because I'm just going to play little snippets, if you will, of it. But I want you to see the linear video in linear fashion, so you will see that she says all of these convicting things within one video, okay? So, you know, I really want you to hear her. She says that the agenda is to get me out of there. So it's not so much like you can throw me out, but it's, I want to really make this environment so bad for you that, you know, I have justification for throwing you out. So she actually says that she shapeshifts out, and she says this. Okay, and so going into like around, you know, 11 minutes and 5 seconds into the video that I'm going to upload, she starts talking about, what are you going to do without me? You know, where are you going to go if you don't have this house or what have you, you know, your dad's house or what have you, you know, our house, then where are you going to go? And so she starts saying rhetoric like that, and she starts saying things like, what is it? oh, I mentioned to her, I was like, oh, well, if you kicked me out of here, that would be very heartless. And she's like, it's going to be heartless. You know, it's going to be heartless then, or something like that. And so I really, you know, I'm not happy, of course, but, you know, I'm really, you know, it's a good thing that she really validates here that what she's doing is heartless. She's telling on herself. You know what I mean? She's really telling on herself. And so, you know, she's shape-shifting out. And so when she talks about, you know, it's going to be heartless or whatever, because I told her it would be heartless, so she's like, it's going to be heartless. And then around minute 17, so around 17 minutes and 20 seconds into the video, she starts talking about how I have a mental problem, and she should, you know, take me down to a mental facility. I swear. This is what she says. So it goes through, she goes through the whole gamut. She talks about how the agenda is to get me out of the house, right? Why you would just throw me out? Justification, facilitating an environment for justification, okay? Then she says, where are you going to go? You need me, and it's going to be heartless or whatever, you know, if I throw you out of here. But why would you throw somebody out that you thought had mental issues? Does that make sense? Like, if my parents really care about me, like, you know, if my daughter, if I had my daughter, what have you, you know, she came back to start her own business and what have you, why would I tell her, you know, I really, you know, want you out of my house, and I'm going to, you know, is already underway, you know, me getting you out of the house, and where are you going to go without me, all right? And then not only that, but saying, I think you're having mental issues. Let me take you down to a mental health facility. This makes no common sense. She totally proves it right there. I rest my case. Like, there is, to me, this is like the coup de grace. I mean, it really is. In terms of, this is really the coup de grace when it comes to you shape-shifting out in terms of what you have the agenda for me. So, you know, with targeted individuals, we're often seen as crazy. You know, we're reading into things and what have you. But when someone says the plan is undergone to actually get you out of here, and they say, what are you going to do without me? And then they say, I want to take you down to a mental health facility. Really, to be honest with you, for my reptilian brain people out there, this is black and white right here. I rest my case. You know. So you know, I really want to share with you, you know, what's going on here, and also too to share the psychological torture itself, because she shapeshifts out and she talks about the agenda, but she says very contradictory things, you know, and it's about simple little petty things like ice cream. You know, my mom said, what did she say? You know, she said, after I told her I bought my own ice cream because I knew she wouldn't want to give me hers, she says, oh, I don't care if you have ice cream. And then on a separate occasion, you know, when I spoke to her, after I told her I bought my ice cream, that's the reason why I bought it, because I knew she wouldn't want to share it. And also she said that I could have some. I spoke to my mom and I said, you know, I think my ice cream tastes a little bit better. So I was like, you know, maybe you want to try it. Because she bought her ice cream from Publix and I bought mine from Target. So I was like, well, you know, I think Target, you know, tastes a little bit better. You want to try that. And so she says, well, why are you eating my ice cream? Yeah, she was like, why are you eating my ice cream if you have your own? Psychological games. Because she started to make me second guess myself. I was like, well, why am I eating why am I eating her ice cream? You know, if I have my own. But she told me, she said, you can have, you know, I don't care if you eat my ice cream, you know, although I had my own. And so, you know, the thing is I'm trying to get you to see is that whenever someone is feeding you contradictions, you start to second guess yourself, and that's done intentionally to make you look crazy. It's done intentionally also to make you look like you're lying, if you will. It's a mind game. So everything when it comes to you know, MK Ultra monarch programming is all about destroying and disintegrating the mind. And so she does not, King James of Scotland, who controls his hellhole from the astral realm, you know, really has, you know, thinks that he's designed this foolproof, if you will, to make me look crazy. When you look at the footage, if you will, you'll see how she's actually feeding me contradictory things. And so it's very sick and sadistic, and the programming is very covert, so you have to be very careful in looking at it. But let's look at some of this stuff. I'm going to play for you her really, to be honest with you, confirming as a TI what the agenda is for me. Okay. So this one, I'm going to point out all of those various things that I just told you, where she says the agenda pretty much is to get me out. She basically says that, and how she talks about how, where am I going to go? And then she says, oh, you want me to take you to mental health? That's what she said. So, let's see. Let me make sure I get this right. Okay, so here it is.
Oh, really? Well, if that's the case, then do that.
Oh, wait a second now.
Every single time that I eat something, or that I want to eat something, I ask you, because this is about exposing what's happening in this home. This is... Excuse me? Let me tell you something. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not arguing about that. Superficially, so from the superficial level, this is your so-called home, but you're trying to place restrictions upon me to get me out of here. That's the agenda. The agenda is this. Ask for food. I can just get you out of here. Oh, really? Well, if that's the case, then do that. Because that's what you want, right? Is that what you want? Let me tell you something. Mom, if
So she says, don't worry about it, it's undergoing. And you can actually watch the actual footage. And she says it's undergoing. So let's fast forward to another part where she talks about how I have nowhere to go.
is what you want.
So she says, don't worry about it, it's undergoing. Now, let's get to around 19.
Monetary things or what have you in here? Well, Mom, listen, let me just kind of say this to you about this being your house. As far as, until you sit down to listen to what I have to say in terms of why monetarily that I am in this house, until you sit down, since this is your house. Oh, really? Oh, really? Oh, really? I need you, Mom? Are you saying that I need you? Are you saying, oh, what am I going to do without you? Oh, here it all comes out now. Let me tell you.
She says, what are you going to do without me? What are you going to do without having our house? Okay? So she's talking about, the agenda, is already undergone, is underway basically, to get me out of there. And then she's like, what are you going to do without? Now listen, somebody that you think was mentally ill, why would you tell them that the agenda pretty much is to get them out of your house, and what are they going to do without you? Would you actually say this to someone that you thought was mentally ill? I wouldn't. But clearly you can see that my mother is not who she says she is.
Okay, so she's like, what are you going to do without me? Where are you going to stay? And then, toward the end, she starts to mention my mental health. So why would you threaten to say, oh, there's a plan to kick you out. There's a plan underway to do that. And then say you need mental health. Why would you kick someone out that you feel that needs mental health? This is very interesting. This goes to expose the agenda.
And walk in my freezer and try to get what you want. That ain't gonna happen. I'm tired.
Well, that's a new restriction because, like I said, I've never heard that restriction before.
You walk in that door, when you walk in that door, I hear the freezer. I'm not going up with that. Because I don't know where you come from on that street. You stay in the street all day long, and that's nasty. I don't want you doing that. You're bringing all kinds of germs in here. I don't know where you've been at. I don't know where you've been.
Well, I tell you one thing. This is the first time that you said this to me. It keeps having restriction. Hate is in danger. A whole lot of ganging.
Look at me.
Yeah.
You don't throw your life to the dog.
I throw my life to the dogs? Interesting.
You need to seek help.
Oh, that's what it always comes down to with Christ beings. We need help, right? Well, let me tell you something. Let me.
You want me? I'll take you to mental health myself.
Oh, really? Well, let me tell you
Why
something.
don't you let me take you to mental health?
Let me tell you something.
Why don't
When
you
it
let me
comes,
take you to mental health?
do you mind if I say something?
Why don't you let me take you to mental
Maybe
health?
maybe you would think I need mental health because I can't get a word out. Do you mind if I get a thought out? Because people, when they have thoughts.
So she's saying here that I have mental problems. And so this is a manifestation. It first starts out, this plan is underway to get you out of the house. And then it's, what are you going to do without me? Where are you going to go? You know, you have nowhere to go. And then it's, let me take you down to mental health. I mean, would you tell your daughter that you thought was mentally ill something like this? That the agenda is to get her out of your house, and then say, oh, you know what, let me take you down to mental health? If this were not a witch hunt, if I didn't get sold out, if you will, to the government, like I do every lifetime, right? Get sold out to Rome. Yeah. I wonder how much they were promised. How much money for my pretty little head? You know, how much? How much was it? You know, how much was it to actually sell me to the government, to take my pretty little head, right? And to, you know, program me when no one knows anything about me, you know, like Crystal Knot or whatever, you know, when it goes back to the Jews and how the Jews just disappeared, you know, and to the fog of the night, if you will, you know, to really push me onto the fringes of society. So this was a systematic plan. You know, this was a plan because, like I said, I did not have to relocate here. My mother coerced me. She sounds so nice and sweet. She was like, oh, come back here and you can get a job here. And so I was like, well, you know, I'm gonna get my own business and stuff together eventually. You know, come back here, sweetheart. And then when I came back, oh, by the way, we want you in here at this time. We want you washing your clothes at this time. We want you taking, you know, we don't want you basically saying, I don't want you to have a hot shower, because that puts me in my body, right? Psychological. It's crazy because, like I said, I told my parents had an issue with their, not their thermostat, with their hot water heater. And so I would heat water on the stove. Well, actually, at first I started boiling it. And then she was like, it affected her thermostat. So I started heating it up. And then she was like, you know, she had an issue with that. And so then I would put it in the microwave. And then she said, well, I don't want you toting the water in the house. Why is that? Why is it that you don't want me to have a hot shower? Because having a hot shower puts me into my body. And the whole purpose is to actually destroy the body, to destroy my body. To keep me away from my reptilian brain and to identify more with my psychological mind. Psychological games. This is sick. I mean, this is really, really sick, guys. To hear this is sad. That I was purposely coerced to come here so I could be crucified. Who has the audacity? Does the government have the audacity to sit in front of me right now? I don't think so. Do you? You know, do you have the audacity to actually sit in my face and to really disclose the things that actually have been systematically and meticulously done to actually attack my consciousness? You know, this is really, really sick. This is really sad. But for me, this is a breakthrough. For me, this is a breakthrough because it really shows how, you know, people that are programmed have shape-shifted out. Have really shape-shifted out to really disclose what they really are. Because you would not, you know, try to devise a plan, to undergo a plan to kick somebody out that you think is mentally ill. You know, really you care. Basically, one thing about gang stalking and about psychological torture, it's spiritual. And so spiritual goes beyond the rhetoric of the mouth. It goes beyond the physical. It goes beyond language. It's the things that are not said. So what is she not saying here? She's saying, listen, I work for the government. I got paid to sell you out. I don't want you here. So I'm going to devise a plan to kick you out. And I know you don't have anywhere to go. And since you don't have anywhere to go, I'm going to take you to the mental health facility. And so, you know, they can actually take care of you there. And so therefore we've gotten rid of you. Because you're crazy. You know? I mean, you're especially crazy after I told you that, you know, you can have some ice cream. And then I tell you, why are you eating my ice cream? Of course you're crazy then, right? Come on now. Come on. This is insane. You know, it's not checkers, it's chess. You see what I'm saying? But because of the little bit of melanin I do have connected to my third eye, I'm able to see right past this. I'm able to see right through what this particular plan is. Nothing beats pineal. Nothing. Nothing beats my pineal gland. Your pineal gland is able to see through everything. And so people at the superficial level will say, but people who actually are Christ, if you are a Christ, then you actually absolutely see what I'm going through here. And you actually get all the messages that are not said. All the things that are not said. So I'm going to put the actual video on there, if you will. But I do want to point out how she's saying conflicting things. She's saying conflicting things, like about her ice cream. She told me after I told her that, you know, I knew that she wouldn't let me have her ice cream, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that I bought my own. And so she says, I don't mind you having ice cream. But then she goes back on that and says, why are you eating my ice cream? It's very insane. This is designed to actually attack me psychologically. Let's listen.
When I asked you for your ice cream, that you would tell me no. Or you would tell me, I guess, strictly.
Oh, 1 second. Sorry. Let me.
What is it? Refrigerator, Mom. That's what I said. I said, I'm not going to be going into your refrigerator without washing my hands. And let me tell you something. I knew exactly that you would do this. So you know what I did? I bought some ice cream because I knew that when I asked you for your ice cream, that you would tell me no. Are you?
So I told her, I knew that you would tell me no, so I bought my own.
Tell me, I guess, strictly, what is it? I'll think about it. I knew, so I went and I bought my own ice cream. But you know what? It actually is very sick and sad that my mother, it's sad that my own mother would treat me like this. This is sad that my mother would give ice cream to her daughter, her other daughter. When I asked you for ice cream, say, I'll think about it. When Tara was there, she did not tell Tara, I'll think about it.
Because
And
you got
so
the
that's very
attitude
sick
you
and
got
it's very
is very
sad.
bad. You come out the street and go into my refrigerator. I want you to wash your hands. You can have ice cream. I don't mind you having ice cream.
You said
So she says, I don't mind you having ice cream. Now, I already told her I bought my own ice cream, okay? So she says, I don't mind you having ice cream. Let's go back. Because I already told her I bought my own.
Or you would tell me, I guess, strictly, what is it? I'll think about it. I knew, so I went and I bought my own ice cream. But you know what? It actually is very sick and sad that my mother, it's sad that my own mother would treat me like this. This is sad that my mother would give ice cream to her daughter, her other daughter. When I asked you for ice cream, say, I'll think about it. When Tara was there, she did not tell Tara, I'll think about it.
Because
And
you got
so
the
that's very
attitude
sick
you
and
got
it's
is
very
very
sad.
bad. You come out the street and go into my refrigerator. I want you to wash your hands. You can have ice cream. I don't mind you having ice cream.
You said that.
So she says, I don't mind you having ice cream. Now let's go to another conversation where she's talking about her ice cream. And also, not only is she talking about, you know, ask me why I'm eating her ice cream, because she makes me second guess myself. I'm like, well, maybe she didn't. I was like, wait a second. I was like, no, you told me I could have the ice cream. And I was like, oh no. I said I did this as an experiment because I knew you would not allow me to have your ice cream. So she really tries to kind of get me psychologically here. But not only that, she starts talking to me again about mental health and how really, you know, in terms of mental health, me getting a check, like a crazy check. I call it a crazy check. You know, if you will, you know, trying to get a check, if you will, for me being mentally ill. And so, you know, I'm not saying anything about mentally ill here, people here, or what have you, or you're crazy, because, you know, mental health is something that, you know, is real. You know, it is real. However, I'm not clinically mentally ill. Okay? So, you know, when I say crazy check, like, I mean that my mom is driving me crazy. Literally. I'm not mentally ill. So I'm not saying that mentally ill people are crazy, but my mom is making me crazy because I'm not clinically mentally ill. If you understand what I'm saying here. You know, I don't want to kind of get it like misconstrued, if you will. But this is what she's talking about. Let's see, I think it's 1:16:72. Hold on. Okay, this isn't.
So why are you arguing about me eating some of yours when you said that I could have some of it? That's what you said.
You say yours is good? So, why you not?
She's saying, yours is good, so why are you eating mine? You told me that I could have, you know, some of your ice cream. So why are you going back and saying, you know, why are you eating mine? This is what you told me. You told me that I could have it.
Oh, no. You told me that I could have some of your ice cream. The thing is, I had a container of ice cream in there that was almost done. And so your ice cream was actually in front of the container that I bought. And I said, well, you know what? It doesn't make any sense to, you know, go all the way back there, especially all the stuff you have piled up in that freezer. So I was like, maybe I'll still eat that day. No, that's not true.
So she starts to make me second guess myself. I'm like, well, did she? I'm like, oh yeah, no, she actually gave me permission to have the ice cream. And so as soon as I start to expose it, she wants me to shut up. And she starts saying things like, she starts saying that I'm acting disgruntled, if you will. It's crazy.
The matter is this, is that I want to
You gotta explain that, Courtney. Go and eat what you want. Don't explain it to me because I don't feel
I
like
just want to expose the fact that you told me that I could have some ice cream. This is all about exposing. You told me I could have some, and now you're saying that you're arguing about me
you're
having
so
it.
disgruntled.
We're disgruntled? What do you mean? Why would I be disgruntled? You're doing contradictory things. I'm just trying to prove that I'm being mistreated. I'm being mistreated.
Sometimes I need to let things go. Well, why should I let something go if you're, you know, that really insinuates that you did something. If I have to let it go, you have to let things go. Well, what have you done? What have you done? Why would I have to let it go? So she's shape-shifting out. She's telling you that she's actually doing little tactics.
The whole point of me is just exposing this. That's all it is. You told me something, and now you're going back on it. To me, that's very telling, Mother. But do you want some of the ice cream that I bought, Mom? It is a lot better, I think. I thought public ice cream was better, but the Target to me is good. I don't like being told contradiction. When you're told contradictory stuff, people tend to call you crazy. They're like, you're crazy. Well, what?
And so I told her, I was like, you know, because she's feeding me contradictory information, you know, people try to paint a picture of you being crazy, just like she did in the conversation before when she initially told me I could have the ice cream. She didn't care whether I had ice cream or not. You know, she basically, with her contradictions, is trying to paint a picture of me being crazy.
People tend to call you crazy. They're like, you're crazy. Well, why am I crazy? Maybe because one day you say something and then the next day you say this? Well, I definitely want to speak to you and Dad about my mental health. Because I think that's something that's going to come into play, can foresee that with my third eye. And since I can foresee that, well, the thing about it is this. The first step is to put light on things. And so I definitely want to put light on it and sit down with you and Daddy and have a conversation. Oh, no. The thing about it is this, is that clinically, I'm not crazy. Well, clinically, why is it that you and Dad don't want to sit down to listen to the things I have to say in terms of my mental health? Is there a reason? Could it have to do with the contradictions I'm being told often and psychologically mind tortured in here? Well, I'm not saying that you're licensed.
Mental health is right down there. They got a mental health society where I can take you there. And they can send for your money and everything.
They can send for...
She says they can send for your money and everything. So they've gotten paid. This is a bounty. Listen to it. They can send for your money and everything. Listen to it.
Often and psychologically mind tortured in here? Well, I'm not saying that your license...
Mental health is right down there. They got a mental health society where I can see you here. And they can send for your money and everything.
They can send for my money? What do you mean? Oh, the government. The government takes care of its, the mentally ill people here. Oh, okay. I wonder why. Let me tell you something. I'd rather slip... I would rather slip on 33 swords than to actually take anything from the government. That's right. I'd rather die in a ditch. But anywho, that's my word, and my word is born. Oh, I don't need help. I don't need help. And so the thing about it is this, is that, I want to talk to you because really the government... No, government, what will the government...
She said, what the government took from you, you can get it back. What would the government have taken from me? Shape-shifting out here.
Tell me what. What would they take from me? That's the key question here. That's the reason why I've been saying a lot of contradictions in here. To expose the government. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. This is going to be fun. Oh, hey, guys. This is going to be fun proving this. What the government took from me. That's why I want nothing from the government. However, I do want to sit down to talk to you about what the government actually did take from me. But see, it's the whole purpose of the government to do it in a very covert way to make...
See, and so I start talking to her, and she starts to get quiet when I start to put light on what the agenda is and how the fact that she got paid to take my pretty little head. And so the thing is that if she's talking here about, or I might, as I'm talking, she gets very quiet, and she also starts getting very quiet when I start talking about scripture. Every time I talk about scripture, she starts to get quiet. So listen carefully.
You look crazy, clinically. Okay, so since we want to talk about issues I'm having or what have you, I will be more than happy to sit down to talk to you about it, Mom, and about what the government took.
So she and my dad never want to sit down with me. My mom always wants to call me crazy and things like that. And, wants to talk about my mental health. When I say, you know what, I really want you to really kind of get an understanding of, the issues I'm having and things like that. She doesn't want to talk about it. She doesn't want to talk about the contradictions that I found in the Bible. She doesn't want to talk about the contradictions that I found in A Course in Miracles. She doesn't want to sit down and talk about my sexual abuse, because all of those things, as my handler, she actually is responsible, really, in some way, directly or indirectly, responsible for.
Sit down to talk to you about it, Mom, and about what the government took. The government, yeah. Well, we'll see about that. Oh, okay, Mom.
Now she says put the clothes in the dryer. Now I was told that I can only wash or dry my clothes in the morning. At first she said don't dry them at night because, the dryer might catch fire. And then she said don't dry them during the day because it's too hot. And then she said dry them in the morning. Now, it is 4:55, and I actually have it on tape. It is 4:55 in the afternoon. Okay? And she's telling me to put her clothes in the dryer. This is psychological. Because she's psychologically... So, one thing about gang stalking is very psychological. It's the things that are not said. That's why it takes a pineal gland. It's not something that can be deciphered from the reptilian brain. And so, by her saying, put those clothes in the dryer for me, what she's really saying is, you know what? I can't stand you. I hate you. This is what she's saying. She's saying, I hate you. And I've told you that you can't dry your clothes, but in the morning, but I'm going to dry my clothes when it's hot in the afternoon, and I have the time actually on my phone to show you.
Oh, okay, Mom. I was doing a lot of work, doing a lot of research and stuff. And so, it was funny, when I went to, when I was being programmed by the government and churches, they never taught me about how there's more than one. Well, let me just ask you
And I say crickets because she just stopped talking. She told me just a second ago to put her stuff in the dryer, right? Now when I asked her, you know, in chapter 6 of Genesis, you know, I start talking to her about that and say there's only one son, and how she programmed me. When she took me to church, she programmed me, had me programmed to believe that Jesus was the only begotten Son of God. But now she doesn't want to talk about the contradictions. It's all about not exposing the contradictions.
You were just so vocal talking about my mental health, but now you don't seem to be vocal about answering that question. Interesting. Do you know, I mean, is there only one Son of God, Mom? Is there only one? Like, what, is that what you were taught, you know, the program? Mom? You want to talk about it? It's like you don't want to sit down and talk about my mental health, but you want to send me down to the mental health facility to get a check for my mind. That makes a lot of sense.
So I tell her, you know, you were so vocal about my mental health and going down to get a check, right? To get a crazy check for me, okay? And, you know, telling me to put clothes in your dryer and talk about your ice cream and all this stuff. But as soon as I mention these contradictions that were fed into my consciousness in terms of religion, taking me to church as a slave to hear the word, and now that I can read it as a master and not a slave, and I see really esoterically from my pineal gland, I actually can interpret it for what it is, she doesn't want to talk about it. Crickets. Crickets. She's the one who actually is responsible for this. She's the one who got paid. She got paid for my head.
I get a check for my mind. That makes a lot of sense. Well, let me just tell you. If you look at Genesis chapter 6, it tells you. It says that, you know what? The sons of God took wives from the daughters of men. Sons. Not one son, because I was always taught that Jesus was the only begotten Son of God. But it says in Genesis that God has more than one son. I wonder why they left that out, huh? Maybe that has something to do with the contradictions that are fed into my mind, and why the government owes me money, right? I would rather slip on 33 swords. Oh, excuse me, Mom. The government. You know, I'm going to tell you something. The government doesn't even have the audacity to sit in my face. Oh, that's right. They have to send their minions and program people to actually target me. The government? But they don't have the audacity to sit in my face. Rome doesn't have the audacity to sit in my face and to explain what they took from me. You know what they need to do? There's a doctrine, you know, it actually preaches that fear is the opposite of love. They need to do a course in miracles. That's right, into the contradictions that was fed into my mind from the Bible. A course in miracles seems to kind of up the ante a little bit. So, you know, the thing about it is that I would rather you respect me than fear me. But you would rather have me fear you. Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense. You know what? When the government creates a course in miracles saying that fear is the opposite of love, but they themselves fear me, that's why they took something from me, you need to do your own stuff, all right? You need to practice what you preach. I heard that, I think in a Madonna song. Yeah. You need to practice what you preach.
I mentioned Madonna there. It was a snipe, really, at the government. Because, you know, there's a song that Madonna has. It's called Iconic. And really, in these songs, a lot of these songs are talking about the Christ. And a lot of these songs is talking about the Christ. In her song Iconic, when she says, what you want is just within your reach, but you have to practice what you preach. You know, the Madonna is very symbolic. Because Madonna represents the mother of Jesus from a superficial standpoint. But from an esoteric standpoint, the Madonna is the masculine aspect of Jesus. The Madonna represents the solar plexus or the kundalini. And so really, within this environment, they design it to have you fight yourself. They design it to where the Madonna, the earthly aspect of yourself, is fighting Jesus, what they consider to be Jesus, or the spiritual, the feminine. The masculine is fighting the feminine. If you look at Madonna's Super Bowl show, you can look this up on YouTube. If you look at her Super Bowl show, when she does her countdown is done in even numbers. It is done in even numbers. Why even numbers? Because it's actually getting back at Eve. It is getting back at Eve. It is getting back at the pineal gland. Eve represents God. She represents the pineal. And so the thing is that the Madonna represents the pituitary. It's the earthly aspect. And so the pituitary is trying to destroy the earthly. Okay, it's trying to destroy the earthly. And so Madonna, not only is she telling you in her Super Bowl show, she's trying to get back at Eve, why the countdown is in even numbers, right? She's trying to get even with Eve. But not only that, but she's saying in her halftime show that she works for Rome. My astral aspect of myself works for Rome. I'm two people, okay? I know you're like, well, just crazy. I just explained to you. We have a conscious ego and an unconscious astral body. So I work for the elite. In a way, you can say I work to destroy my ego for the elite on the other side. So my mother represents really, from an esoteric standpoint, not literally. This is for my Christ beings here. My mother represents me on the astral realm. I work for the elite on the astral realm. And so the Madonna, when Madonna had her halftime show, and she was counting down in even numbers, and she had her Roman soldiers, she says, she's saying to you, I work for Rome. That's why Catholics, they worship the Madonna more than Jesus. Hail Mary. Hail the earthly. Hail the earthly. Okay? And so there's always talk, if you will, and you've heard this on YouTube channels and things like that and documentaries, how the Pope is the Antichrist. The Pope is the Antichrist. You know, just to give you some food for thought. You know, the Pope Francis, I actually checked out his documentary. You know, his documentary and how it talked about how he got his name from Saint Francis. It was a saint that he actually, you know, because all popes, they take names, I guess, of saints and different people. And so when you look at different, you know, occultists such as Alice Bailey and so forth, they talk about how Saint Francis is associated with the coming, really, of the so-called Antichrist, like Lord Betrayer and so forth. And so one thing I want you to know about a saint, from an esoteric standpoint, is a disgusting, filthy whore. And a saint is a disgusting, filthy whore because a saint is not balanced. A saint is super duper feminine, spiritual, psychological. You cannot be in this reality super feminine and not be a filthy, disgusting whore devil on the astral realm. If you're super good here, then you're super bad when you go to sleep at night and you shed your concepts of the matrix. That is why the Catholic Church values saints. Saints are filthy, disgusting whores. Look at Madonna. Look at how Madonna is portrayed in the media. She's portrayed as a whore. And she's having Roman soldiers in her countdown, her even number countdown of her Super Bowl. She's letting you know, I'm the whore of what? Babylon. That's what she's saying. She's saying, I'm the whore of Babylon. I work for Rome. I'm here to get even with Eve. That's what she's saying. I'm here to actually take knowledge from Jesus. Take knowledge. Take the pineal gland. Take all of it. Take all of it. And that song she has when she says, give me all your love, and then she has Nicki Minaj, a beta, what you call it? It's like a beta, doll or what have you. In that video, because Nicki Minaj is known to actually switch personalities. MK Ultra, Monarch Programming. She's telling you right there, I work for Rome. I'm the whore of Babylon. That's what she's telling you. That's why she always wears crosses, has crosses all over the place. When Jesus is crucified in the Bible, he's not, and it says that he took on the sins of the world. You can't take on sin. You can't taste, touch, and smell sin. You can't say, bring me that sin over there. You can't smell sin. You can't feel sin. You can't see, literally see sin. It's not something that's tangible. She's talking about the psychological mind. When Jesus is crucified, He's crucified in Golgotha, the place of the skull, his psychological mind. I am being crucified in my psychological mind with all of these mind games. That is what the occult meaning of being crucified is, in Golgotha, and taking on the sins of the world. When I meet people nowadays, I don't meet people superficially. I don't meet people's physical just or their egos. I meet the filth that's behind it, which is a very sexual energy. When you are in this realm, you are suppressing in some form or fashion your sexual nature. Is tied to your will, and your will is tied to your genitals, which is your solar plexus. And so when I meet people, I meet the filthy, disgusting hordes of Babylon. That's what I'm meeting. I meet people's whore cells. I'm taking on the sins of the world. This is sick and sadistic and filthy. It's so funny, you know, when I was looking at the Pope's documentary, you know, and he was talking about, don't have a proselytizing attitude. I wish he had said that when I was being beaten to go to church to hear the word of God. Being beaten and made to listen to contradictions in the Bible is far beyond proselytizing in my book. I hope he buys it. But anywho, guys, you know, I know I'm coming across very angry, but I'm angry because I see past the BS. And my pineal gland is able to put connections, if you will, to these various aspects, if you will. I didn't mean to do that Illuminati, like, 666 thing. That's what it is. They're praising Satan, basically, with 666. 3 sixes. That's what they do. But it's all an agenda. It's all an agenda to take the pineal gland of mankind. So you actually don't know anything. You're only a 5-finger chick, which you can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. You have no pineal gland. Transhumanism at its finest. And so it makes me angry because I've been through hell, and I've gone through hell and I'm still going through hell to get this message out here. So I want you to share this video with everyone. I want you to share it with everyone. Share it on your Twitter. I want you to share it on Facebook. I want you to share it with everyone that you possibly can, because there's an agenda to censor this and to actually push Christ beings on the fringes of society, incarcerate us, put us in mental institutions. I've already proven it. That's the purpose. And so I don't open my mouth. So I don't really say what the truth is, what the truth of the matter is, in terms of what is being done to actually destroy humanity and to take away our hue. So we're not human anymore. We're just stick men, straw men, if you will. And so, you know, that pretty much does it, guys, for me. When it comes to this, like I said, very groundbreaking in terms of gang stalking. A very groundbreaking video just to prove what is happening within my dwelling and so forth. And I just wanted to shed light on it. And so in one of my future videos, I want to really show you how my mom is, you know, she's really not receptive to listening to me about my sexual abuse and things like that, because really, to be honest with you, it has everything to do with her. You know, it has everything to do with her from an esoteric standpoint. You know, my mother herself did not physically abuse me or sexually abuse me. She did not do it, you know, directly. But when I actually disclosed to you the plan that was set in terms of how I was systematically taken to a family member's house almost every weekend to be molested, she doesn't want to hear that. Doesn't want to hear that. Doesn't want to hear how my love was taken away from me. My ability to manifest was taken away from me as a little girl. This astral aspect of myself benefited from this. My mother used to tell me, you dance to the music, you pay the piper. But let me tell you something, at this point, she's actually, you know, singing a different tune. It's definitely not, you know, you dance to the music, pay the piper. How odd that things change. So anywho, guys, you know, like I said, thanks for watching this, and, you know, please forgive me for being a little bit angry, but, you know, I've been through hell. I hope that you can empathize, and that I have some people out there that actually have a heart to actually empathize with me, to really know or really feel the hurt, the sadness, and the anger that I'm feeling. So thanks, guys, and I will see you in my next.